Welcome to the Agency Founder Podcast. Are you ready to grow your marketing agency? We pull back the curtain to show you how real marketing agency founders struggled, built, and scaled their agencies. Practical advice, lessons learned, wins, and losses. We hold nothing back. Now your host, Jeremy Sonny.
Welcome to the Agency Founder Podcast by Moonshine Marketing. Every single week, we interview the successful founders of marketing agencies at different points in their journey to pass on their victories, defeats, challenges, and lessons learned to help you take your agency to new heights. This week, we're speaking with John Coyle of Explosive Growth Marketing, an agency focused on maximizing growth and customer acquisition for national brands looking to scale. John, thanks so much for being here with me.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk agency life.
Yeah, right. So national brands looking to scale. That's an interesting niche. You know, like how did you land there, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, of course. So So like rewind back to like 2014. I worked for this SEO agency, and we like this massive SEO agency at the time. I think we were the biggest SEO agency in the United States in terms of like number of clients. So we had like 17,000 clients. They were all local businesses, so it's not super hard to get, local businesses ranking in Google. So it was just a process, right? Like it was an assembly line. They had like 500 employees. Some people knew a bit about SEO, a fair amount about SEO. You got the opportunity to learn a lot while you were there. But yeah, it just was like massive volume of clients, all local, all small type of thing. Actually, interestingly, at that time, I was also like, there was this sort of online sort of like Groupon for runners, like marathon runners. And they hired me to like their marketing, like their director of marketing. I was the only employee. And like I had no idea what I was doing, but I did my best. So that I started running Facebook ads for them. And so I transitioned from the agency I was at. So I was doing that like part-time on the side while I was working at the SEO agency. I transitioned from there. I went to another agency that is really big. They have like some clients that I think their biggest client actually does $1 billion a year, but they focus heavily on like auto dealership groups. So there's a lot of revenue there. But again, we're talking local marketing. I was the head of paid social there because, the qualification was that I had run some ads on Facebook. So I got the head of paid social job because Facebook was pretty new at that time. And it was running lots of local stuff, lots of lead gen. But then that agency actually started working with some e-commerce brands. And that was when I first started running some ads for e-commerce brands. That was when I was like, yeah, this is what I like to do. This is what I want to do. I want to work with just a few clients at a time, but clients that can kind of scale really big because they have the ability to sell all over the country instead of having to work with a whole bunch of accounts that can only sell in a local area.
For sure. So 17,000 is a few more clients than I've got, admittedly. That's really interesting. What's kind of the experience of working kind of with that number, just kind of diving into your background a little bit more versus kind of that more focused sort of approach that you're talking about now?
Yeah. So for that agency, the whole thing, and they like in orientation on the first day you work there, they literally say, this is assembly line SEO. It's not like they're ashamed of it. They're literally taking people who are raw, like their employees who are completely raw, and they're teaching them to do like one specific task as it's related to SEO. And that's essentially what they just create a massive assembly line of like, of college kids all the way up to, some of the managers, there but are older and, more career oriented, but a lot of times they're really more focused on like, those people are more focused on managing teams than really being SEO strategists. They have like one SEO strategy team there that are kind of high level marketers, SEOs, but they really like to handle that many clients. This is kind of what I noticed was it has to be process oriented, not people oriented. You can't be doing something that requires a lot of thought work from your team because to handle that many clients, you have to have a massive team and you can't expect them all to think the same and stuff like that. And so, yeah, like I just realized like, yeah, if you want to grow really, really big as an agency serving local businesses, you kind of have to get a lot of clients because local businesses usually have smaller budgets and they have kind of like set budgets. And then, to get a lot of clients, you have to create just something that's a sort of out of the box turnkey process to get those clients results that fit their budget or fit what they're paying for.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting, different approach. And so, kind of contrasting that and kind of what I was hearing from you is now, your agency is, you're working more with kind of like people maybe, and you're a little more focused on the relationship and how you can scale because, with like large national brands, right? It's how much can we get so long as the return on ad spend or whatever metric is solid. Is that a fair sort of characterization of what's going on now? Tell me about that sort of experience.
Yeah, so and that's ultimately I realized I didn't really love working in that kind of assembly line environment, mostly because I realized that I really, really like marketing. I really like learning about marketing tactics, strategies, like thinking through problems, actually like kind of having put in thought and having, some creative problem solving. That was what I enjoyed doing. And like at that company or at companies like that, it was kind of like, it doesn't matter how smart of a marketer I ever get to be, unless I get onto the internal marketing team for this company, the team that markets the agency, or if I get onto the strategy team, like I will never really be utilized and I will never like that side of me that really likes to actually, problem solve and look at each individual account and say like, how can we get better results? It would have never kind of been possible there. And that's what I like to do. And yeah, so that's what it's like kind of working with more national brands. I kind of say like, look, in order for our agency to make more revenue, we don't have to go get like a lot of times local businesses, if you ask any local business owner, like, hey, what's your monthly marketing budget? I will bet you dimes to dollars, at least 5 out of 10 will say $500 a month. Like just spit it out. Like that's it. And $500 a month is all they're ever going to spend on marketing, no matter what kind of return you can show them. And it depends on the local business. Of course, some spend more and stuff like that, but like that's just like kind of standard, right? And like if that's the case, you can't really fight for more budget out of those people. So you just have to go get a ton of clients. Whereas with a brand that wants to scale nationally, like you're saying, like, if I'm working with an e-commerce brand and they say, hey, if I'm running Facebook ads for them and that's the scope of work I'm doing for them, and they're like, yeah, we need a 2.5 ROAS. And as long as we're getting a 2.5 ROAS, we can spend 100,000 a month or 150,000 a month or 250,000 a month or something like that. Usually my pay is tied to that level of either the revenue they're bringing in or their ad spend or something like that. So I can make more money. Like I just wanted to put myself in a situation where I get to make more money for being a better marketer, not for banging through more clients more efficiently.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting and something that hasn't come up yet, but I know is really popular, especially inside of the performance marketing circles and like the Facebook advertisers. Is a lot of people talk about doing either performance marketing or tied to ad spend or something like that, right? As opposed to like a flat fee or like an hourly. Can you talk a little bit about how to put those deals together? Because it's got to be a little bit custom every time, right? And kind of why you like those deals over maybe like a more traditional like hourly rate or something.
This can be a deep well that I have a lot of thoughts on because I've changed my pricing model, wiggled it around and adjusted it like multiple, it's ongoing, right? Like, I mean, even right now I sort of am, but like, I'll just kind of convey what I've learned about pricing model and how it ties to your business. So before you decide how you're going to charge people, what you need to decide is like, what is it that you're really good at from an agency perspective? Are you really good at bringing in new clients? Are you really good at like actually running campaigns for clients? Are you really good at scaling? What I realized early on was that, well, I don't know, early on, I probably took me way longer than it should have. But like, what I really like is I like to be compensated well for running marketing campaigns. I don't like to be compensated well for doing biz dev and running my own ads and doing, sales calls, 5 times a day or 10 times a day or whatever. Like that's not how I like to be compensated. That's not how I like to grow my own business. I like to grow my own business by running ads, right? Or running email campaigns or text marketing campaigns or whatever. So if that's the case, if that's the kind of person you are, if you're like, hey, I want to be a really good marketer and I want to make good money based on how good of a marketer I am, then the pricing model you need to choose is one that isn't going to have you chasing clients a lot, right? So one that will retain clients well, and one that will make it so that when the client results are really good, you get paid well and the clients will stay with you. So typically that means that when the client results aren't good, you don't make as much. The way that I've priced up until fairly recently is I've had some kind of flat fee, or a of revenue or a percentage of ad spend. And like you said, the performance side of it or the bonus side of it, you could say, that always is like a little bit different depending on what kind of business model it is. So like, for example, if it's a subscription box and they have like a really great front end offer where it's like a $1 first month or something like that, a percentage of revenue like is a very great deal for me because if I'm running Facebook ads, the acquisition revenue like per sale is only going to be $1, and they might be able to afford $30. So then it'll be something like a percentage of ad spend. Same with a lead generation campaign. If the primary goal is leads, usually it's a percentage of ad spend. If it's a e-commerce, like kind of maybe more quote unquote traditional e-commerce brand where they need a 2 or 3 ROAS, then it might be a percentage of revenue or a percentage of ad spend. Ultimately, I'm actually just looking for something that works well for me and for the brand and allows everybody to like kind of maximize the relationship. So up until recently, I've had flat fee or that. But in talking with another agency owner recently, he only charges a percentage of ad spend. That's it. He doesn't charge a flat fee at all, which I think it gives a lot of agency owners pause, or a lot of agency people like me pause, because it's like, well, what if the campaigns are going bad? I'm not going to get paid anything, or I'm going to get paid really, really small amount. But like, this is what I realized the trade-off was, is average churn time for me usually is, between 6 and 12 months. And it's usually like when a client campaign, like when they're in a bad season, right? Or they're in a like slower period with their ads or something like that. And I end up charging the flat rate a few months in a row because we're not hitting performance and we're not hitting performance bonuses. And then it gets to the point where it's like, oh, the flat rate is like too much for them to pay. And so they churn a lot of times. He, in the whole time, been running an agency for 4 years now, has never once had a client churn because he only charges a ad spend. Because what happens when the things aren't going well? They scale down spend. Why would they ever fire him? He only gets paid for what he manages. So I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Like, if you want to get paid well for being a good marketer, being a good ad buyer, you want to set up a model. And I'm not saying everybody should just go out there and not charge flat fees or whatever. You want to set up a model where, like you don't have to chase clients very much. So you retain clients and you make good money when things go well. And you're motivated to like get in ads manager to like, grind out creative or do whatever it is you do to get results. That's, what will end up paying you more.
That's super interesting. I think that sort of really aligned interest in regards to, how you're compensated versus how the client performs really, I think probably does do a lot for retention. It probably does. Can you talk a little bit about what that does on your end? What does your team look like? What's the makeup? How does that sort of long-term client retention and, focus on just a few people affect how you structure things internally for your agency?
So the internal structure is the challenge to what I'm talking about. I think that for me, a lot of why I wanted the flat fees was because people who subcontract for me want flat fees. And I can't just convince them, hey, why don't you just take, only a percentage of my percentage or something like that. It's not them that's the entrepreneur. It's not them that owns the business. So their whole thing of like working for someone else is like, they don't have as much risk for not as much reward, right? And so usually they want flat fees. So that is actually the challenging piece. So I don't know that I have a ton of insight on structure, but I'll tell you what, essentially I've seen work for myself and for others I know who use a similar model where they really only get paid on performance. And side note, like, I'm not saying go pick up whatever client you can and just say, I'm only going to charge you a percentage of ad spend. There is a vetting process so that you're not working, you're trying to protect yourself against having clients that like, oh, ads really don't work at all for them, so you never really get paid. Because then you'll just have like, again, you'll go back to having 25 clients, all of whom don't spend very much. And it's the same thing, so there's a vetting process there. But, it also kind of gives you that unique selling proposition of like, look, my pay goes up and down with your pay to the client. So internally though, oftentimes subcontractors, team members, whatever it is you do, they will want some sort of flat fee and some sort of performance upside. So the way that I look at that compensation structure is I say, all right, well, we will do a flat fee and you can base it on whatever. I think what tends to work is for like a new employee, a new subcontractor, whatever, trying them out on one project, right? So if they're a media buyer, you just say, all right, well, I'm going to put you on one client. So we can have a little bit of a test run together and let's get in the field and play together and see how that goes. And then you just kind of pay them per client, pay them a flat fee per client or an hourly rate if they prefer an hourly rate, but you balance it. So for you with the client, you have really high reward on the upside and really, like bad revenue on the downside. And you're taking away that risk for the contractor, right? So they still make money even if things don't go well. So you have to, like, as much as I want my people to make tons of money when things are going well, and they have the opportunity to make good money when things are going well, it's not like the reward side has to be really kind of more balanced in my favor. So when things scale really high and go really well, I do really, really well, and my team member does well. And the reason that is because I kind of need to store up cash reserves for when I need to pay them their flats when things aren't going well, if that happens. So that sort of structure, like it's still the same structure, but then do things like see if you can get team members to reduce hours if things aren't going well across all your accounts, or if they're per account and an account isn't going very well, you can just say, hey, I'm going to take that account back. So you're just going to focus on your other ones for now or whatever. So you can, there's ways to scale up and down on their flats, but their flats are the risk that you incur. So I just make sure that like a really high, like the amount that I'm making versus the amount I'm going to pay out in flats on average is going to be very favorable for me, so that things have to go really, really south in order for me to be like, oh crap, I'm not making any money.
For sure. Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, that's the way that we do it. So what we do is, most of our work, we work with some brands directly, ones that have like an internal marketing team or whatever, right? And they just need like media buying help, media buying strategy, analytics, that sort of thing. But most of our work comes through working with like content creative agencies. And what we do is we just take a percent of their take. And that seems to go really well. And we don't do flats plus percent, but we do minimums. So you either have to hit that minimum or, if we're scaling up beyond that, then we're going to scale up beyond that. So I kind of found that like as like a happy medium for us, at least.
And that's where I've bounced around. So I used to say, hey, you need to be at this minimum. Like, let's say the easiest way for me to think about this in terms of what I do is like, let's say somebody wants me to run their Facebook ads and I'm going to do it on purely a percentage of spend. I used to say something along the lines of like, hey, you have to be at this minimum spend for me to take it on. But what I found in a lot of cases is that, you leave clients on the table doing that, and they could be really good clients. For example, like they could be a wholesaler who's looking to go direct to consumer, or they could be someone who's grown largely, through Amazon and they're looking to go direct to consumer or something like that. And it's like, oh, they everything is there for them. They've got, ability to make good creatives. They've got ability to do a lot of stuff, but you're saying they have to spend, $30K a month before they can work with you or whatever it is. And you leave good clients on the table. So I used to do a minimum type of thing. Now what I do is I'm kind of more casual about the conversation, and I just say, like, if they're already spending a certain amount, then I'll just come on at the percentage if it's like agreeable, right? If they're hitting my minimum, I don't even need to say anything. I'll just come on. But I will say, like the conversation will go kind of something like, yeah, we just do purely a percentage of revenue or purely a percentage of spend. But just know that, like, if our number gets below this for a few months in a row, we're probably not, it's not like we're going to drop you or something like that. But if we have to allocate the resources on your project to something else for a time being, I may reallocate those resources. So yeah, like I just don't, we just want to be aware of that. Like we just want to make sure we have that ongoing conversation. And that's like not a very official way to have the conversation, but like most brands get it. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, like if you're not making very much, you'll kind of keep your finger on the pulse, but allocate resources elsewhere, or maybe you'll kind of put it on pause for a little bit, right? I just kind of tell them the possibilities, and there's times, yeah, there's been times not for me, but for someone I used to work with who does this same model. I used to subcontract for him, where he eventually just realized, like, hey, we're never going to hit your target CPA to scale. We've tested so many things, and the things we've asked for on your side just aren't getting done fast enough. And other, clients and projects came along that are more promising. So, we're going to have to pause this until you guys are able to do, X, Y, and Z or something like that. So yeah, that's how it looks like on the minimum side. But if they're not spending at all, like they're not hitting my minimums when they want to come on, I'll just set up like a flat fee for a test campaign type of thing.
Sure. I think that makes sense. Well, it's interesting. It's actually like really gone deep into the pricing model and stuff like that, I haven't really gotten to explore with other people, but it's fascinating, really. Is there any other, so like, kind of going off of that theme a little bit, as you see your agency growing, and you're going and looking at this, performance-based model and stuff like that, do you think you'll be able to keep that up? Is the dream to grow? And obviously, I mean, the dream for everybody is to grow bigger, or maybe not. I know some people that are their goal is to stabilize, and to just hit like a monthly average target, and keep that, for the foreseeable future. But assuming that you're looking to grow, as you grow your team, as you grow your agency, are you just going to like move up and try and work with larger and larger brands to grow revenue that way? Are you going to try and move laterally, work with more clients, but at like, kind of a national scale already? What's your growth plan, I guess, is what I'm curious about.
So that's a good point. So what I would say is that like the first thing you should think about in terms of a growth plan that most business owners like don't, and this is all business owners, not just agency owners, is like, what is it that you really like doing? And like, what's in your like zone of genius, right? So what's like something that you're really good at and you really enjoy doing? And which aspects of owning your business, running your business is that? And then what you really want to think about is, as I grow, I really want to grow in that role, right? Like I want to continue to do what I really like, or there's this, aspect that's really exciting me that's the role I want to grow into. I think you should be honest about yourself, whether you're actually really good at something, or if, someone else can do it or whatever. So that's a big thing, is that like for me, for anybody, like growing an agency like mine, for example, a lot of people would just be like, yeah, no, you go after bigger, like it's a combination of you scale up your current clients, you go after bigger clients, and you create more products that you can offer your clients. So, maybe if you run Facebook ads for them right now, you can run their Google ads, and then you can get paid on that spend too, or that revenue too. And you can run their email and you get paid on that revenue too. And we've kind of done a combination of all of that. But yeah, at the end of the day, like what you'll realize as you bring on more clients, or as you bring on more products, you will realize that you become more managerial, right? So like if you really like running marketing campaigns, you'll do less of it as you bring on more clients or more projects or more team members, right? And so it's like if you really love running marketing campaigns, then I think like the route for you is to try and figure out like, how can I get in with just a few brands that are kind of, that I believe are on this really great growth trajectory, and then tie my company's growth trajectory to theirs, but then still also thinking about like, you want to be diversified enough that you're protected, and you're not going to, the floor is not going to fall out from under you if a client leaves or something like that. But yeah, like if that's what you really like doing, that's kind of like where you should look. And that's kind of where we're at right now, is we're kind of looking at like, how can we have like maybe closer partnerships with a few of our clients that we really like working with. We really like the work that we're doing working on those clients, and we believe that they are going to grow really big, and how can we do that in a way where where we're essentially working on a few projects, and our company growing at the rate it's going to grow based on how well we're doing as marketers, and we're still diverse. We're still working on enough different projects that if one of them isn't going well for a period of time, or if one of them decides to part ways with us, it's not going to be detrimental to us. So my whole thing for growth is my growth goals aren't just around revenue and profit. They're also around number of clients I'm working with and number of team members.
Interesting. So it seems like a diversified growth strategy, not like we're going to grow by getting more clients or we're going to grow by going after bigger clients. It's, kind of a little bit of columns A, B, and C.
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything, but really more the vision is to say, I want to work with a small team of people who is all highly skilled and really smart. I want to work with a small group, a handful of clients who are all really great clients and really great to work with. And like those are the two caveats, but I also want to grow to this level of revenue or something like that. So it's like, but revenue doesn't count unless those other things are met, because I realize like that type of environment is going to be where I actually get to like do the marketing strategical things that I really love doing.
Yeah, I think that's a good point about whether or not you like running an agency or you like running marketing, and kind of figuring out that about yourself, and being introspective when it comes to what it is that you're trying to build and be intentional with that. Would you say that that's kind of a fair, like a really thing that you should learn early on so that you can head in the right direction?
Yeah. So what I think I've seen in the most successful agencies in our space is that their leadership really starts to get in the groove of what they clearly like to do and are clearly good at. Like for example, Right Hook Digital, they're really big Facebook advertisers for e-commerce. Their leadership team has really grown kind of into the roles that they like to do. So like he's kind of their head of like sales and business development, and that's what he is into. Like he's into talking to people about marketing and talking to people about what makes e-commerce brands successful and stuff like that, and going to events and meeting people. Like that's what he's all about. And Scott, like their other kind of founder, he is all about like really being in ads manager, and so he's kind of grown into this role of like, I am kind of the head of like how we stay ahead of the curve on Facebook, right? And so another example is Tier 11. So Ralph Burns is sort of the head of Tier 11, and I would be willing to bet he doesn't spend a lot of time in Facebook Ads Manager anymore, but he really does like having his finger on the pulse of Facebook Manager and creating content about it, right? So speaking and doing podcasts and stuff like that. So like Scott would be an example of like, yeah, like introspection helped him realize like, I love running campaigns. So he's grown into that role, whereas Ralph is like, I love geeking out about marketing and teaching it to other people. So he's grown into that role. D says, I love geeking out about marketing with other people. So he's grown into that role. Right. And so I think a lot of it is like, when you're planning your growth, you've got to sort of like, yeah, have that level of interest. Like you have to see what success and like love of your everyday life looks like for you. And then like figure out what is the model for this agency and team that will create that for me. And it's not easy. Like I don't know. I feel like I'm saying that like sounding like I have it all figured out. Like it's an ongoing process for me.
For sure, I got you. I say a lot of things that I'm like trying to figure out myself. So totally get it. So one last question, just kind of just to get in your head a little bit, for folks that are like listening to you and say like, hey, this sounds really good. This is kind of what I'm going for. Where you're at right now, what's kind of your biggest challenge you've faced in the past, and what challenge are you looking towards next? As you see where you've come from and what you're trying to grow into.
All this stuff I'm talking to you about has been is kind of the answer to both of those at a high level. Knowing thyself, right? And getting it figured out. So like there's been phases where we brought on massive numbers of clients, massive numbers of team members, like we were running ads, and it like goes really well. Like you could say that that's really successful because we made a high revenue number doing it, and we had a lot of clients, and we were able to grow the business. But what I realized was that it was like, oh my gosh, this is an operational, like I am an operation, like I'd have to grow into being just an operations person to run it this way. And so I scrapped that, kind of reset gradually and did it a different way. And we've sort of probed it out a few different ways. And so I'd say like a lot of what we're talking about is the biggest challenge. To be maybe a little more specific, biggest challenge for me has been other aspects of being a business owner, right? So if you're looking at like starting an agency, or if you're an agency owner for a while or whatever, I mean, if you're an agency owner for a while, I don't know if this advice applies to you because you'll kind of know this already, but like if you're looking at starting an agency, realize that like, that's what I'm trying to say here is that like, ask yourself why you're wanting to start an agency and what it is about it that attracts you, because there's going to be a lot of just like running a business stuff that doesn't have to do with marketing, and so if you want to do it because you like marketing, that's why. But if you're like, hey, I just want to run any business, I don't care if it's an agency or not, like that's fine, or like team members, hiring team members, knowing kind of the right, like when and how, like how much should I be making? How many clients should I have? Like to hire team members, like all that out. It's difficult. It's very difficult. At least for me, that's been my biggest challenge. Yeah.
I actually totally hear you. And I think that that is like a really good point that you hit on. And I just want to address real quick. I see a lot of people, they take courses and they're like, oh, Facebook ads, right? Like I'm going to start a Facebook ads agency, right? And I guess there's nothing wrong with that in theory. But the truth is that I see a lot of people that really just want to be entrepreneurs, right? And I've actually started actively dissuading people like that, where I'm saying like, okay, you don't have a passion for marketing. You don't really, in some cases, don't really even understand marketing. And not that that's a bad thing. We've all been beginners at some point. And if this is like a passion and you want to do it, then great. But so many people, I mean, an agency is a hard business to get into. I don't think people really understand how much of a grind it is to, establish yourself and find really good clients and then, work with those clients in a very intimate sort of way, scale them up, deal with like the different challenges that come with it. And by the way, any services company is going to be like lower margin, than like a pure product company, or at least in many cases. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with me there or no?
I actually agree with you for the most part with some caveats. I think you're right. I think you're looking at it from the perspective of, and you're a little bit like me, where you like actually really love marketing and strategy and like all of that. And you're like, well, some of these people just want to be entrepreneurs and they don't realize that like an agency is an expertise business. Well, so I'll give you a few like things that I disagree on. I think that one of the reasons people get into the agency life, and this is like a lot of the times you see these people struggle and struggle and struggle, is because it's actually probably the easiest / quickest way to like make your first dollar as an entrepreneur, I guess. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's fair. That's true. No, yeah. You could just go door knock and get like a $200 organic social, $200 a month organic social media management contract. Like pretty much anybody in America could like find some small business owner that would be like, yeah, sure, I need somebody to do, Facebook for me. Right. I agree with that for sure.
yeah, you're providing a service. Like all you have to do is like find somebody and say, hey, I'll do this for you for money. And providing a service to business owners, they tend to have enough money that you can actually start to like kind of gain a little traction and make a little living for yourself, right? So I'll say that, and that's why a lot of people get into this, because it's like, oh, this is like the easiest business model right now, and they're like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I don't want to work for a boss anymore. I want to work from home. Like people kind of getting into this space or getting into the, I guess, make money online space or whatever. Like I don't know. I guess I'm really stereotyping and thinking of like all the guru ads that are out there pitching the agency.
To be clear, I'm not talking about somebody that like works at an ad agency and is like, I'm going to do my own, or somebody that was like a marketing manager or something. Like I'm talking about like the, bought a course crowd. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like, so I'll say that because, yeah, like actually kind of like you can create a quick win for people with the agency because they can find somebody who'll pay them to do something for their business, right? But your point of like this isn't a business to get into if you're not passionate about marketing. I will disagree a little bit on that, but you have to understand that about yourself from the beginning. So you have to realize like, I am setting up a business right now that I'm completely disconnected from. So think of it as like you probably work with some physical product companies, I'm guessing. Sometimes you'll realize, like, you might work with a brand that sells home products to women. I'm using an example for myself. Home products to women. It's run by like bearded dudes who like to run. Like they're like, I don't really care what the products are, what the brand is. Like I'm not. I don't have to be the market in order to do this, right? I don't have to be passionate about home products in order to run a successful home products business. Some people will disagree with that, right? But I think that I do know some successful agency owners who don't have a passion for marketing, but they understand from the beginning that like this is just like I am the CEO of this business, right? So I have to find the people who are passionate about marketing to run it, or I have to find clients where it's basically just easy to get them results on more or less a turnkey basis, and nobody really has to be passionate about marketing. So that SEO company I worked at, I don't think that, I think maybe when they started, they realized that they had the ability to get local businesses results. So that's like how it got going. But after that, like beyond that, like I don't think that any of the people in the C-suite there were really super passionate about SEO or marketing anymore. So I think you can see an agency like that, but when you're going to do the work, you've got a good point. Like I don't think most people realize that when they're getting into it.
Right. They're like, oh, I'll just put the ad up and then I'll hit go ad. And then it's, kind of whatever. Like I learned some secret trick or something like that. And then, I'm going to get it out the door. But maybe I'm just being a grumpy guy. I don't know. It's possible. I've been grumpy before.
Oh man, like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to go work with e-commerce businesses, right? And they get their first client and it's like a drop shipper. And, it's somebody who has like no unique creatives and no, like they're not set up for anyone who's experienced knows they're not set up for success with ads or whatever. And this person's like, oh, great. I got my first client. They're so excited. They get, not getting paid very much and they run ads and like nothing happens, right? Like they get no sales and they're like, what? Like how? I thought that the whole challenge was getting the client. Like they don't realize that it's like, no, like the whole, like, getting the client, man, it's like I don't even know if it's half the battle. It's like getting the right like you're saying, the right clients that actually have like can have success, and then knowing enough to actually make it happen for them. Like that's a whole different thing than if you're like looking, buying a course, getting into the agency space, like because you just want to be an entrepreneur. You can be an entrepreneur in other ways, but if you want to start an agency, you're not passionate about like learning about marketing, then realize that you need to create an agency that doesn't rely on you being passionate about marketing. Or you need to go work for if you do want to like create an agency at it, go work for somebody for a little bit.
For sure. Yeah. And like I will add the caveat that I was going after like a very specific kind of person, right? Because like a lot of folks that we work with are, really smart content marketers or really great graphic artists or, brand designers, that sort of thing. Right. And they're like looking to offer full service. And I think that's great. I think that, that's awesome. I'm just saying, like, if you're just trying to get rich quick, I don't know if this is the best industry for that. That's all I'm saying.
To drive your point home, somebody said this about the music industry, and I think it really applies to the agency industry as well. Like they said, there's never been a better time to make a living as a musician, but there's never been a worse time to get rich as a musician. I would say the same thing about agency life. Like it's a great business model to like make a few bucks, make a living, kind of pay your house payment, whatever. It's very hard to like get rich. So if you're looking to get rich, it's a long road in the agency space.
Oh yeah, yeah. And like even if you're going to do the fulfillment, right? Like, you go out and sell and you're all excited, you closed, $1,000 retainer on that client, right? And you're looking for a fulfillment partner, like, half of that at least goes out of the door immediately, so it puts a lot more pressure on that sales side. So I really appreciate you being here. I really like the tone that this took, honestly. I learned a lot about pricing and negotiations and like introspection around, the way that you want to grow, as well as, kind of the agency business, thinking about that at kind of a high level. And so I really, really appreciate that. I let every one of my guests do a quick pitch for whatever they want at the end of every episode. And so I'll give you, 1 or 2 minutes here to do exactly that.
Yeah. So I won't pitch anything that I'm selling or anything like that. But I've got a couple things. So first of all, I run a agency mastermind. It's free. We hop on a Zoom call like every other Friday or so, and it's just various agency owners, like with various kinds of agencies. So it's really interesting. And yeah, we talk about this stuff. A lot of it is some of it is mindset or like self development. Some of it is like, how do we solve these problems around hiring, finding good people, training people, stuff like that. So if you want to get in on that, if you're an agency owner and you want to get in on that, you just like I guess find me on Facebook. Like that's the best way. That's such a weird or email me. I'll give you my email. It's JOHN at coyleenterprises.com. So coyle-enterprises.com.
COYLE-enterprises.com.
Right. Yeah. So you can email me if you want in on that, or find me on Facebook. That actually is the best way to get in touch with me. Like, I don't know, we can link my Facebook. It's actually like my user handle is facebook.com/John Coyle without an E. So all one word. So it's JOHNCOYL. If you want to connect with me on Facebook, message me and say like, hey, I'm interested in getting in your agency mastermind. We can get you into that. And then the other thing I'm doing that has been working, this is like more tactical, like for clients, like getting results for clients. I've been doing a lot of collab campaigns lately where I'll have like multiple brands within who kind of have similar demographic and psychographic marketers will collaborate on a campaign, and it kind of makes the campaigns more profitable for everyone. I won't go into the details here, but yeah, if you've got like multiple brands, or if you've got like some brands that you feel like, hey, like something kind of new or different, or a different outside the box marketing idea might work for this brand, well, yeah, you can connect with me in the same way and talk to me about those.
Excellent. All right. Well, that's wonderful. And thank you so much again, John, for all your time and expertise. Again, got a lot of insights. And for all of you out there listening, use that introspection. Think about what kind of agency you're trying to build. Use the, tactical advice about pricing, and happy marketing.